I'm glad to hear that Leicester Square satisfies many of the criteria involved in your research. What would you recommend for an assessment with regard to the future management of Leicester Square?
Okay, apart from what I have done to develop the assessment method and provide a comprehensive data support decision-making procedure, I would like to involve more public to join some questionnaire work, and then I can develop more questions based on people's feeling, people's mental health or physical health in terms of the feeling of the square, and to make it more human and environmental interacted place. I think that's the future of my research direction.
I think that'd be a very good thing to do, and if you haven't got time to do it yourself, I hope somebody will come forward and volunteer to collect the data and to relate it to the database that you collected on other open spaces.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Hello, Tom Turner. Nice to meet you in a very sunny afternoon in London. We're in Leicester Square, and what do you think of this place?
I think it's been redesigned lots of times, and the most recent design, I think it was 2012 for the Olympic Games in London, Burns and Nice did it, and they won a competition with lots of international competitors, and I think the judges were right to appoint Burns and Nice, and I think the design they did has been a real success.
Well, actually, where you sit is from the new design. All these benches was not there before 2012, so you're right, that is a successful plan. And based on your experience as urban designer and theorist in urban design theory, so what factors do you think affect the popularity?
I think they've done a good job of matching the design and the facilities to the use as the hub of London's theatre land, really. It's a good place to close off and hold outdoor events, and when it's not closed off, it's a very good space just to sit, as we're doing, and pass the time. If I try and remember the history of it, in the 19th century, when it was closed off to the public, there was just a fence round it, and there was a great house on the edge of the square, and nobody was allowed in. And then they managed to open it to the public, and it got railings round a green space with cars round the outside, and that wasn't much good. And then they gave public access to the inside, and the Shakespeare Fountain was always an attraction, but it was more like a residential square than it was like a public square. And then I think the GLC commissioned a lot of different designs and built one of them, which wasn't a terrific success. But as I say, when Burns and Nice redesigned it, it was a great idea to have this sitting wall that we've got, and I quite like the flashy fence. I wouldn't want it everywhere, but since Leicester Square is a glitzy kind of a place, I think it's fine to have a glitzy fence. And it's lovely to have a sunny place to sit, which is where we are, and a shady place with grass. It's quite unusual on a world scale to have a grassy square with public access, but London's climate is very well suited to that, and as you can see, there are people lying on the grass and enjoying the shade, and other people sitting in the sun and enjoying that. And it's really at its busiest after dark when people are eating before going to the theatre and then enjoying the space again when they come out?
Excellent answer, and especially you mentioned sunshine, and actually I did that in my research, but I forgot to mention when you're
What did you find out about sunshine?
Actually, I found out that people doesn't like totally full of sunshine, a place full of sunshine. People doesn't like a shady place either. They like a mix of them. And it was reflected in my research. But sunshine as a general factor, it doesn't have much significant to make a public space popular. Not as much as the influence of food and seating. That's my finding.
I'm glad you mentioned your research, because I do think it satisfies many of the criteria that you investigated. The space syntax is good. I'm thinking of Jane Jacobs. There are lots of attractors round about in the form of theatres and restaurants. Thinking of William H. White, there's lots of places to sit and lots of places to eat. And as you say, it's got both sun and shade, and the scenic quality is pretty good, especially after the redesign. And I think if one looked at the physical dimensions of the kind of thing that interested Camilla Zita, I think you'll find again that the proportions of the height to the width are comfortable, and indeed it's sloping, thinking of feng shui, it's sloping downhill towards water. Although we can't see the water, we know it's there, and that's good.
Well, I just about to mention that to you. I'm glad that you will think the same thing at the same time. Yes, and as you can see that I just about to ask you, do you think the fountain, the water, and the woolly bench and the stone bench affect the popularity of Leicester Square? Because as feng shui idea presented, a place should have water and should have a wood and metal to make the place popular. I think Leicester Square matched that criteria quite well. But based on my research, it's quite interesting that feng shui idea was found not very useful correlation with the Chinese public space, but found a higher but not significant result with some squares in London. I think that's a interesting finding from my research.
That's right, but if you think of feng shui as being contact with nature in a very broad understanding of the term nature, rather than just vegetation, which it often means in an urban design context, then I think Leicester Square provides that. It gives you contact with stone and with plants and with water and with the sun and the wind and birds in the trees, with wildlife. And so I think that despite its high use intensity and the many social uses, it also provides contact with nature in a broad sense.
And yes, around here we can see lots of pubs, lots of food places. I think that provides a good opportunity for the square to be popular as well, because actually food was found a very, very, I think is second importance factor to make space popular based on my research, apart from seating. So I think all the food places around here contribute to the success of this place. And I think based on all these analyses, a comprehensive approach to design public space is needed, rather than only consider one factor. So we do need to have an assessment method to measure each factor and then to provide data and analytical results for design decision making.
For whom there is no God.